there, welcome to Ampersand Unique Gifts and Home Decor. My name is Sarah. So today we're going to do an organizing video. Exciting, right? Okay, just kidding. It's actually about organizing in plain sight. So if you are a crafter or a reseller, and even if you're not, you know that the struggle is real. We all have our different ways to organize things, our cabinets and our shelves and our baskets, but at the end of the day, it's still there, it's still organizing, and it's hard to keep not just looking like some kind of organizing tool. So I'm hoping that today I will inspire you to think about things differently, whether you're thrifting or you're just looking about items in your own home, but how you can organize in plain sight. So we have a few different things that we're going to upcycle, and we are going to just show them as your regular home decor. But these are places that you can store things. So people that come over to visit, they're not even going to know that you have actually got things organized, put in their place, right there in your home decor. So stick around. Let me know if this was inspiring and which one was your favorite, and I'll show you how to do this.
Project number one is an old train case. I painted it red, not this past Christmas, but the one before that because it had great plans and then it sat in my stash. So today we're actually painting it with the Debi's Design Diary DIY paint in the color Weathered Wood. I am working through my stash both in projects waiting as well as products. So this is an old can. It's very thick, so I'm using water and just spritzing it on there to help it glide on a little bit smoother. And I'm not having to work so hard to get the coverage that I need. So just like with the red paint, I am going ahead and I'm covering latches and hinges and feet and handles and giving everything a full coverage of that weathered wood. So you can see here how it looks when it is wet after its first coat. Here it is dry after its first coat. And after actually giving it 2 coats, I then take the DIY Cottage color in white linen and I'm going to give it a dry brush. And what that means is I'm going to get my paint on there, I'm going to wipe it off, and then I'm going to take and wipe most of it off onto a rag so that my brush is dry, hence dry brush. And I am going to begin going over the entire piece, and it brings out, it's kind of like if you use a colored wax, except I'm using paint, and it really brings out that detail. And I'm going to do all over, and I'm going to go in different directions just to, again, bring out all of that texture and have that beautiful coverage where it's not quite as dark. Now, I am using, this is actually Sweet Pickins wax. It has a wonderful citrusy smell. And this little container is from the Jami Vintage Craft Kits, and they always give you plenty of product. And so I'm using up the little extra pieces that I have from that. Now I am adding in on top of that wax. So I used a JRV stencil brush to get that wax and those little details. And now I am going to cover over where I put that wax with the Debi's Design Diary DIY Decrepit dust. Oh my goodness. And it just helps to give it that aged look. So it's kind of like using dark wax, but this is just a dust. And I don't put my paintbrush back down into the dust container because I don't want to get that wax down in there. So I put a little bit in the lid, and then I just use my brush and dip it down in that lid. And I'm putting the Decrepit dust everywhere that I have put that wax, and it just helps to give it that aged look. You know, I know we clean everything and then we work so hard to make it look dirty again. But no, I really love that aged look here, and that's what I was going for. If you don't like that, if you're not into distressing or aging, then obviously you can skip that step, and you could skip the white dry brush as well and just leave it a solid coat. But I just wanted to give this a new look. Its original color was kind of a blue-gray, but it did not sell in that original color. So here we go. We're giving it a little extra bling. I love the DIY golden rule. It's just this gold gilding wax, and why not? I mean, I'm a little extra, so let's keep giving this a little extra. We're going to go back and use that wax, and then we're going to put a little of that decrepit dust. Why can't I say that? on here again and just kind of tone down some of that gold. I really wanted it to have that bling, but I didn't want it to stand out and not continue to have that aged look. But I do truly love the way that this came out. It was exactly the look I was going for, and I will show you the finished reveal at the end of the video. Project number 2 is a Samsonite round suitcase hat box. It is almost brand new inside. It literally has the tag. I don't know if it was ever used. I don't know how old this is. I can tell you it did say that it was $20 on there when it was new. And before you haters come at me for what I'm about to do to this, I do want to say that it did not sell. So if you would have bought it in its perfect, pristine condition like this, then I am so sorry that you did not stumble across my booth before this. And it was bigger than what I was going to ship online. So we are going to clean it up really well. It's gotten dusty while it sat waiting for someone to love it. And I'm just going to clean it all up. I also had this in my stash. I love this little saying. I don't know, it's not necessarily a poem, but and it is on this fabric, like it's supposed to look like a faux canvas, but to be honest, it's almost like a plastic. But we are going to attach that to the front. It's by Scott Fitzgerald, I think. Anyway, it'll show fully later. Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. But I am using the DIY Cottage color in Crockery. If you have been following me, then you know that this is actually my new favorite color. I want to paint everything this color. It is the most neutral, beautiful color ever, and look how well it is covering. It has a built-in sealer, so once you have painted with this, then you're finished. I mean, you do not have to go back in and seal it with anything unless you choose to add a color wax. I did go ahead and tape off the things that I did not want to have that color. But it just, the light's kind of making it a weird gray color. And I did put it on a stand just to help spin it around. I let the first coat dry overnight. I put my brush, I'm using a Klingon, and I can't remember the size, but I'm using a Klingon brush here. And I did put it in a plastic bag so that I didn't have to clean it, but that it wouldn't dry out and ruin my brush, because remember that paint has a sealer in it, and you have to be really careful, unlike some of the other clay-based Debi's Design Diary DIY paint. But here you can see 2 coats is the perfect coverage. F. Scott Fitzgerald. Oh my goodness, there we go. See, I told you we'd see it in a second. I rounded the edges and cut them to kind of go with the shape of the suitcase, but I didn't just want a flat, straight line. So what I'm doing, it does fray, even though it is this like plasticky faux canvas. So I went ahead and ripped some edges off to create that frayed look there on the side, and not on camera, but I did also take that, you know, the top and the bottom where it was rounded, and I used sandpaper to fray that a little bit as well. Now I am using Debi's Design Diary Liquid Patina, and this is in the color Crystal Clear Chandelier. You can use it as a top coat, a decoupage medium, or here it's technically more like a glue, because it's not necessarily decoupaging that on the top because it is such a hard material. But I make sure there is plenty on the suitcase, and then I decide to go ahead and add it to my fabric as well. And I'm gonna just coat both the entire back here, and you can already see I have it everywhere on the suitcase. I'm gonna press it down, I'm gonna put a coat of it on top, and then I'm gonna use my brayer roller, and I'm gonna make sure that there are no bubbles or gaps, and I'm gonna press it all in there and let it dry completely before I move on to this step. So here's my crockery. I'm going to go around the edges. This is what matches the rest of the suitcase. And I'm going to just begin to paint around the edge so that I can blend in different colors and help that, whatever that is, fabric, plastic piece that I put on there. So here is another liquid patina. It's also Debi's Design Diary, but this one is dark and decrepit. No. Oh my gosh, I think it is. Now I've got myself messed up with the decrepit dust. But as I'm going, you can see that that paper is, it might be weathered, but it's apparently not brown gray. It's starting to get a green look to it. So as I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to blend that in, I go back up to my stash and find some more really dried out paint, which I mix in with where I had poured out that crystal clear liquid patina into this little container. I mix some chunks of that celery color from Waverly, and then I take that's the stick I use to stir my liquid patina, my dark liquid patina there, and try to make it a little bit darker. I'm trying to find what color is that. It did not seem so green until I added it up against that Crockery. And so I'm going to continue to just stipple paint. I'm trying to create a texture around that so that I can blend in that other piece. Still, now my green looks like it needs some yellow, so I'm going to add this cake batter from DIY in with it. And guys, I have to admit, this piece was getting the best of me. I loved my idea, but right about now, I was ready to just give up and tear it off and sand it and just paint the whole thing. But I wanted it to work so badly, so I continued to go through blending it in and trying to find that perfect color. And eventually, you know, I feel like I did. I finally found what color that was, but I didn't like the way it was blending, so I just painted completely over it. Yeah, I'm done. Told you I painted over it. No, seriously. I painted over it, and then I took wet wipes and began to pull back the letters. That way, it really did blend in with all of it, and I still had my beautiful saying on there, and it kind of helped age it. This was the perfect idea. I did not regret this at all. It still has a little bit of paint through there, so it looks like it's just worn off throughout the years, and it gave it that worn look. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Let's move on to the next project. Okay, so I'm using 3 different color paints, 3 different brands, and we are going to use it on this set of nesting boxes. Oh my. So I have these nesting boxes that someone has painted to kind of look like faux wood. I paid $2.99 at the thrift store for these, and as you can see, 2 of these things are doing the same thing. 1 of these things is doing its own thing. But I'm going to leave them all together, even though 2 are round and 1 is square, because they came that way. They've been together all this time. I don't want to separate them. So cake batter, that is this beautiful yellow. I think these colors are going to look wonderful for spring. I'm going to age them so that they're not quite so bright, but meanwhile, I am giving this a coat. I'm trying very carefully, you'll see me, to not get down over the edge, so I'm really soft up around the top, and then later I figure out, okay, whoever painted these before got it all down in there, so I end up painting everywhere, inside and out. It is kind of a slickery coat that I'm painting over, so it makes it a little bit harder. You can see it's kind of when the paint doesn't really have something to grab onto, so when you have something that's slick like that, it'll take a little bit more coats to cover, plus this is a light yellow over top of that brown, but no big deal. We're going to give everything a couple coats of paint. Look how fast I am. Man, I'm so fast. It's going to take me like 5 minutes to do all these. Here is my really odd blue. There's what I was talking about, where it like dripped down inside. So all of them had a little bit of a mess in there. So that's why I decided to do inside. And painting with this is like, so when I was growing up, we had this paste, Elmer's paste. Does that even still exist? It's the thing that they used to say all the kids ate. I don't know any kids that did, and I didn't, but they say that it did. I remember it smelled really good. But it's kind of like painting with paste, and the good thing is on this raw cardboard, it's covering really well, and I just take a chunk, put it on there, smooth it out, and because of the way I'm distressing it, and I want these to look old anyway, so I really don't care if it has a little bit of a chunky look to it, so I just slap my paste on there and spread it around, and it's like, it's covering really well. Nothing like letting your paint sit for 6 years and not use it, and to have it be really thick and get great coverage. Not sure that I recommend that as a method, but some of these paints really are old. I'm trying to go through, have a little piece torn here, and then right about now I remember these are made out of cardboard, so I probably want to be pretty careful and not just And here is my Waverly in the color moss. I think this actually turned out to be my favorite one. And I decided instead of doing the inside first, I'm going to do the bottom of this one first. I do the outside and the bottom. I have it sitting on a paint can that is a little bit taller than the box itself so that I can spin it around, and I also don't have to worry about when I get down to the bottom, which is actually the top, that it's going to have paint that sticks to the paper that I have over my table, because that would really be a bummer. So here is, here's the whole lot, and they all had their one coat. This is the next day, and I am showing what it looks like when it's dry, and even the green that looked like it wasn't going to take another coat has some places that are kind of sneaking through. So I have to touch up a little bit there, and then I have to go through and paint either the bottom if I haven't painted it or the inside if I haven't painted it. And see, I put all my paintbrushes in a plastic bag when I leave them. It's nice if you know you're going to come right back and paint with the same color either later today or tomorrow. It doesn't last forever, so don't just leave it forever. I've had to destroy some paintbrushes. This particular color is the Debi's Design Diary DIY clay-based paint, and I have to admit this is incredibly water soluble and it is wonderful. I have left paintbrushes in this for way longer than anyone should ever recommend, and they were salvageable, but I can't speak to some of the other ones in here. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to this video and why it's so slow. Maybe I just wanted to show that I can paint slow. We're putting a second coat on. Apparently something went totally awry with the video. But I do end up only using 2 coats, so the real point is just showing that the coverage was perfect with 2 coats. Every single item, all 3 containers and their lids, inside and out, even under the lid, got 2 coats of whatever color applied here. Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't know why I left so much of this in here. It's funny. Does it not sound like all right, anyway, here we are, all dry, all better, and I'm going to sand it very gently because, again, these are cardboard. This is a 220 sandpaper piece that has been used and very well loved, so it's almost like taking just a piece of brown paper bag to them, but it smooths it out and gets any just lumps out there. And now I'm looking for a rag, don't have one. I'm just going to use my sleeve. I mean, why not? I just need to wipe off that sanding dust. And, this is a call out to my mom, who made a comment that I stay so clean when I paint. Just wanted to show that I am a real person, and I do absolutely get very messy when I paint. I mean, really, can you trust a crafter that stays clean when they work? So yeah, shout out to my mom. I do get dirty. But I am not going to seal these yet before I do the next step. I am going to set it on that paint can though, because I set it down on my paper and got yellow on it. I'm going to add some labels to the front of these. I mean, they're beautiful as they are, but let's make them even better. So this is a Redesign by Prima. It's called Vintage Seed. This is old from my stash. I honestly do not even know how old it is or if they even still have it, so I apologize if you love it and it's not available anymore, but you can certainly look. But I'm trying to decide which one I think is better. Now I'm trying to decide if I want to put it on the front or the top. Since this is the smallest of the nesting, if somebody were to stack them on up, I thought, well, this will be a good one. Let's put it on top. It has more space to work with. And I have since then put a used postal envelope down there so that I don't get paint on the bottom of my piece. And I'm just kind of figuring out where the measuring is, and I cut it out. I saved you from having to watch me do that. And now I am sticking it on there. I'm just going to center it in the middle, pulling the backing off. If you're not used to using a transfer, that's how it works. It's almost like a decal or a sticker, and you pull the backing off, put it down on there, and then you take a transfer stick. This is just a plastic piece, and take that transfer stick. Every transfer comes with a transfer stick. Sometimes they're kind of like a real thin little piece of wood. Sometimes they're plastic, depends on the brands that you use. I prefer the plastic, so I always save them. And I like to just stick mine down everywhere to kind of get a good grab before I start working in one area or another. A lot of times I'll start in one corner and I'll work a little bit, then go to another corner and work a little bit. I have to admit, the labels that are all one piece, I find harder than I do when you're doing one that has lots of little individual details but has space in between them. I think that these full-size labels are always so much harder for me. I have way more boo-boos when I'm using these one piece. So I finally get a hold of the plastic that covers them, and I'm going to just kind of pull it back. If you pull on it and it's not attached, it's coming up with the plastic, just lay it back down, take your transfer stick, and push on it again, making sure that everything is there. So I'm just going to slowly, I thought, I've pushed down everywhere. I'm just going to slowly peel this back. And, should not have done this. I should have laid it back down and started coming from the other edge and coming toward the middle, because right here, it folds back on itself. And I tried to go ahead and press down and get it. I thought, no big deal. Nope, it ripped off that edge, and okay, no big deal, right? We're going to save it. We're just going to pick this up. We're going to lay it back down. I'm showing you, it's no big deal. And only to realize actually it folded against itself and there's nothing to stick anymore. So I take that plastic, I run it all over. It's called burnishing, and just making sure there's no bubbles anywhere under there. And now I'm going to distress it. I really was going to anyway, I promise. I wanted to make it look aged. But now it really looks aged on that one side. And I'm going to rub it around the edges of the box. I'm just bringing back that brown paint. The good thing about chalk paint or clay-based paints is that before it is sealed, it is very easy to distress. You can use a wet rag, you can use sandpaper. So I'm just bringing back that brown paint that was under there. So I'm kind of being careful not to get all the way down into the cardboard. And I even take my transfer stick and my fingernail and pick a little bit at the other side of the label, trying to make it match a little bit on that one side, just to keep it really looking aged. So here we go. I think it will be okay. I really love that label on there. So again, using up all the different waxes that I have, and a stencil brush. I have several of these that I use for the different color waxes. And occasionally I do clean them, just not very often. They get hard and I press them down to kind of, make them not so hard. And then after it gets too bad, I will actually soak them in hot water. But same idea that I used on the travel case. And I'm just putting that Decrepit dust all around the edge, and I'm going to do it around the edge here. I'm going to do it around the both the corner and then the bottom edge of the lid, and then I'm going to do it around the edges of the label. And I'm just kind of adding it on here, but then I'm going to use my rag, same rag that I've been using. No reason to trade it out because I'm making, using the dark dust with all of it, so I just keep this rag around to use for that. And I'm going to smear it and just give this an aged look. Here I am looking for a paper towel because, just a word to the wise, when you are using wax and you are holding on to something, you would want to have something that you're holding onto it with. So either another rag, a paper towel, a piece of paper, anything, because I have actually sold things with my fingerprints in them because that wax will capture your fingerprint. So the hand that is not using the rag is holding onto this with a paper towel to avoid getting my fingerprints in the wax. And, you can do as much of the dark as you like or as little as you like, or if you don't want it to look aged at all, don't use it at all. But if you end up with too much and it looks too dark and it's like, whoops, now it just looks dirty. That's not what I wanted. You can take your clear wax brush and go back over it, and it acts like an eraser. So it's, I do actually, even though you might not really be able to see it as much here, I do actually go back and forth with clear and dark. I'll put clear on there and then I'll use my rag again. And I go back and forth off and on. Like here, I'm using my hands. I'll figure it out here in a minute and get the paper towel. And I will go back and forth until I get the right texture that I want. I tried to just kind of sprinkle it. And again, I'm not dipping my waxy brush down inside that dust. I am just pouring a little bit into the lid, and then I will stick my brush on the lid. And here I'm just trying to fling it on there. Obviously, I don't realize as I'm doing it that you can't really even hardly see what I'm doing. I always think I know exactly where the camera's pointing, and I told myself it was pointing at that little envelope, and here I am halfway off the envelope. So sorry about that. Just take my word for it. Waxing and wiping and waxing and wiping. But again, so you can see there, see, quick shot of it where I actually took the big brush with the clear wax because I just really needed to blend it in a little bit better. Sometimes that dust gets a little too streaky, and here I'm trying to show you, but it's kind of hard to tell, isn't it? How that dust is sitting down, because when I painted, remember my paint was thick and it left the grooves. Look, I'm gonna figure it out here in a second. I'm gonna be like, I can't even see what I'm doing. So I have picked out one here, and I'm checking to see where it fits because the label is bigger, and I'm trying to decide whether to put it up on the lid and down on the bottom or just down on the bottom. Side note, I have already put the dark, the waxes, the two different textures and colors on the lid. So you can see that the color of the lid is a little bit different than the color of the box. So that just kind of gives you a nice side-by-side of what it looks like before and after we age it. But I decide I'm going to cut the bottom. So the bottom's already cut because the way this label came, there were 3 labels that were cut, and part of them was on the bottom and part of them was on the top. I don't know why they did that. Why didn't they just make the label small enough that it fit on one page? Because that's actually a real pain in the neck to have to line it up. I mean, I will not get rid of that, even though it is the bottom of a label that I'm getting ready to use. Because, I mean, I cut little pieces off of stuff and fill in the gaps and holes and things all the time. So I will save all my scraps because eventually you end up using them for other things. But I'm going to cut this to fit on here because I decide that rather than try to get part of it on the top and then cut it, and I'm just asking for something to go wrong, and I'm going to go ahead and leave it just right under the top there. So I'm going to get my scissors and kind of cut both on the right and the left just to give me the idea of where it is. And then as I cut the label out, I get as close to the edge of the label as possible with my plastic. Using the table here as my straight edge, I'm going to stick it on there. And I'm going to use exactly the same method that I used on the green box. Oh, here, look, talk about luck. Being able to stick one down like that and peel it back up and having it not rip. I don't even know why I was testing fate, but I just wanted to get it straight, and I did that, and it didn't rip. I'm so proud. But I'm going to use my transfer stick the same way. I'm going to attach this, but rather than make you suffer through it, I didn't show you that. And here is the one. I did the same thing where I used the bottom edge and made it come just under my lid there. And I'm going to attach that the same way, and look here, my paint isn't even dry. So speaking of testing fate, you really should seal in chalk paint before you add these. But I didn't. I went for it. It worked.
Say something like you love me and make my day, like you always do, like you always do. Hold my hand and look me in the eyes so I can tell you how I feel, tell you how I feel.